Hi, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to this live session. I'm Esther Martinez, CEO and Editor-in-Chief at People Matters, and I'm going to be your host for today. And as you keep joining in, because this is a live session, it will be great if you can just let us know which city, which country you're joining us from, and it will give us a sense about the richness and the diversity of all of you joining in this conversation. Today, we're going to focus on the research that we launched on the HR Evolution Perspectives 2023, Empower and Evolve. And this research is in partnership with Darwinbox. And we're going to go deeper into the insights and perspectives for our Southeast Asia audience. And we're also going to have an opportunity to then go into an open conversation with our panelists this afternoon. So just to give you a little background, People Matters, Darwinbox, we gather responses for over 2,000 HR practitioners and more than 1,200 employees that participated both from an HR angle and an employee angle to put together this research, HR Evolution Perspectives 2023. And it is the largest study of its kind in Asia. And the objective really was to capture those trends, insights, and being able to provide you a little bit of a more practical roadmap for you to look at the way you can accelerate transformation in your organization. So the report looks at the talent equation for success. It provides different lenses to the different challenges that you're facing in your organization. And today we're going to have an opportunity to give you a sneak peek of the report, and we after that going to deep dive into some of the key learnings and applications of it with one particular case study. So before we do that, I'm going to request Vikrant Khanna. He's the Global Head, Value Management Advisory Solutions, Darwinbox. Very warm welcome, Vikrant.
Thank you so much, Esther. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you with us as well. We've requested Vikrant to take us through the key highlights of the report. Vikrant has over 18 years experience having worked across geographies, across different sizes of organizations, supporting them and helping them accelerate the transformation journey. And he has worked across different roles. And most importantly, I think somebody who really, really always partners for business impact. So very, very excited, Vikrant, to have you with us. And before we move into the panel discussion, we'll love if you could take us through some of the key highlights of the report. Over to you.
Sure, Esther. Thank you so much, and welcome to everyone who's joining this live session. I'll spend about 10 minutes talking about the findings of our research. The research is called HR Evolution Perspectives. We were very thoughtful in choosing the word perspectives because it's not just a research study. The intent behind an effort like this, which brings together partners like People Matters and a large team at Darwinbox, is to create a dialogue and to create a dialogue for the community that we serve, which is primarily the HR community, but more importantly, also uncover trends within the Asian market, which is so distinct. And our study talks about it on why Asia needs a different lens. It's just very special to us. So I'll spend the next 10 minutes talking about some of the key findings. Before, first and foremost, a quick introduction to Darwinbox. We are one of the fastest growing HCM platforms, end-to-end HR solutions platform in Asia and expanding globally. We are perhaps the only Asian SaaS provider which is featured on leading analyst reports, be it Gartner, Forrester, to name a few, and are rated highest when it comes to customer satisfaction and customer recommendation. We are backed by investors which span a very illustrious list. To name a few, it includes the likes of TCV, Salesforce Ventures, and one of the most recent investors in Darwinbox, Microsoft. Talking about the research, Esther alluded to the scale of the research. If we look at the participant profile, we had close to about 1,200 odd organizations participate in the research, 350 CXOs, and about 1,500 employees who rendered their voice around employee experience and expectations thereon. If we put together the entire gamut as the impact that we are driving through the study, it represents the voice of roughly 4.6 million employees in Asia, which equates to roughly about 80% of the population of Singapore. And if one was to look at the revenue impact that our participants drive, it's close to the GDP of Japan. So, what were the key findings, and why was I alluding to the fact that we are seeing some distinct trends shape up in Asia? Close to 8 out of our 10 respondents, and this is just considering the CXOs, 8 out of 10 CXOs predict a very strong growth sentiment in Asia. This is a marked departure from what we are seeing elsewhere in the world. Asian stories are coming to the fore. And in fact, if one looks at all of the predictions and the projections being done by the World Economic Forum or the International Monetary Fund, somewhere between 2024 and 2025 will be a watershed moment when the Asian GDP overtakes the GDP of the rest of the world. That trend and that sentiment is visible in Asia now. What it means is that CXOs are aiming for higher profitability, higher revenues, expansion, which is happening across different strategic pivots. These could be pivots of expanding via M&A. These could be organic expansions. Asia is a growth story and will remain to continue to be a growth story. But the other side of the coin is that as organizations gear up for growth, it is also uncovering certain talent risks which are creating or which are taking away the sleep of the CXOs today. What are these talent risks? Only about a quarter of our CXOs who responded to the study are ready for these talent risks. And these talent risks can be themed, right? If one looks at all the changes which are happening in the economic situations, it creates an ecosystem of change which is pushing businesses to think differently. If we think of technological advancements, that's pushing businesses to think of digitizations in a different lens. And last but not the least, as purpose grows and gains more and more importance, it's pushing organizations to think of sustainability and having leadership which can cut across 5 generations. I've just picked up the top 5 risks that CXOs feel that they're not ready for. And these are themed mostly across the lens of capability as well as change. So if you think of developing capability for critical roles, having the right leaders, these are capability related gaps which the businesses are struggling with. On the other side, if one thinks of all the transformation which is happening in businesses, you need to help employees adapt to new digital ways of working. That's coming to the fore. And how do you eventually balance it out? By providing a consistent employee experience. I must say that across the last decade or so, when I've run several studies of this nature, this is perhaps the first time that I've seen rising people costs become a concern for the CXOs. Asia has never been riddled with rising people cost. Yes, perhaps high cost locations in Asia, certainly. But this is a trend this time around that we saw across each and every market, starting right from the Middle East uh, corridor, India, and even more so in Southeast Asia. What this is hinting towards is that soon, as organizations plan for growth, there will also be productivity pressures. It's not all doom and gloom. Like I said, there is a growth sentiment out there. Yes, CXOs are troubled. But what our study also found was there are outliers who are performing in multiples to where the market is today. I'll talk about who these outliers are, but first let's look at a few important numbers that these outliers are able to achieve. And these are in multiples. These outliers are 4x likely to be more confident around the investments which they are making in HR and technology. That's an area which has come up strongly. It's an area where budgets are rising, and it's important that you're confident about your investments. With that confidence, what's also coming through is impact on the business. They're 2x more likely to deliver better financial results and meet the expectations of their shareholders. Their confidence in retaining critical and high performing talent is also double of that of the market averages that we've seen. And they're also 2x more likely to adapt to the changing environment that we operate in. What is the definition of this outlier? And when you have data from 1,200 organizations, you try and slice and dice it across different segments. Are outliers present in a particular geography? Are they defined by their size and scale or the spread in which they operate? Or are there sectors where we are seeing maturity move ahead of the curve, above the market average? That wasn't the case as we were sieving through the vast amount of data that we collected. What came out was that HR organizations, which are proactive and are responding to the needs of the business, are those which are truly taking an outside in paradigm for their transformation. And it's a good comparison to see how far we've come along when we think of HR transformation. The narrative of HR transformation, which was in the past restricted mostly to HR efficiency, is now taking a different paradigm. It's moving towards a paradigm of business impact, employee empowerment, and driving the right kind of agility in responding to the changing environment. What you see out there is a comparison of how these outliers responded to the past view of HR transformation. And you'll see that it was mostly anchored around decreasing the cost of HR services, which is efficiency. You'll see elements like, expanding the nature of the services which HR provides, faster decision making in HR. Look at where we are today. You'll see strong themes of proactiveness in responding to business needs, empowering the frontline and manager staff. I'll particularly talk about this empowerment because as we work in a hybrid ways of working, today the workforce is distributed. And if the workforce is distributed, the nature of empowerment that our frontline employees and managers need has grown exponentially. How are we tackling that? That in itself defines our ability to execute on business strategy. Last but not the least, what has really leapfrogged ahead from the past is the view of employee experience. And for the first time, what we are seeing is the role of digitization being prominent when you think of HR transformation. Each and every transformation now is a coming together of changes in people behavior, changes in practices, and last but not the least, enabling it through technology. And to think through this, what we also found was that outliers are taking a two-sided view to any program which they are running. While on one side, agility is important. Agility in HR responding to the changing environment, agility in them tailoring programs to the needs of different workforce segments, using technology to enable programs at scale. Equally of equal importance in this hybrid in this hybrid world is the lens of employee experience. And the breakaway from the past notion is that people used to think of agility first and experience second. What we are now seeing come to the fore is that these two are to be thought through together. And it's almost like an integrated view that you need to have to complete the total circle of successful HR transformations. When you think of employee experience, this is not anchored around engagement because engagement is like a rear view mirror. This is more proactive. It's living in the moment, looking at moments that matter, and in those moments, making employees feel that they're well supported. They have access to data transparently. They have access to policies transparently. Creating an environment of trust where they trust the way Their managers and leaders are looking at their performance and using their aspirations to make career decisions for them. And last but not the least, how do we bring in empathy in whatever is being rolled out across the organization? So this sort of becomes the total circle for HR transformation going forward. There is a lot more that you can read about this circle of transformation in our research, but I'll give you a quick glimpse of what are the key messages which come out as we've studied these 1,200 organizations, interacted with a small segment of the CXOs who participated in the study. The three broad messages are that regardless of where you are in your journey, you can start now. And if one was to dwell deeper into what came out, there are three themes which are very strongly coming across the agendas of most of our participants. And these are: number one, solve for scale. Throughout the pandemic, and then as we started experimenting with hybrid workforce, there is a lot of experimentation that has happened. But that experimentation should not die a slow death. Organizations need to start thinking about how can we take that experimentation, combine it with that combination of people, practice, platform, and really take it to scale to really amplify and multiply the business impact that we've had. The second theme, which is taking a cue from employee experience but elevating it, is personalization. And when you think of personalization, it is getting to a zone where you need to know where your employees are, where are they in their journey with the organization, and you start bringing to life moments that matter view, where employees feel that the organization truly cares. And it could start with as simple as: how's my support experience while I'm working in the office, or whether I'm working from home, or if I'm traveling for work. These are simple steps that we can start taking, and all it needs is empathy to really look at where is the employee in their journey. Technology came across as a large theme. As you think of technology, a very strong theme emerging across Asia, and particularly Southeast Asia, is the notion of consolidation. There was a phase when organizations went out and built a portfolio and a collection of different best of breed platforms and technology solutions that they had implemented. But as the need for better integration uh, of talent management, for example, comes to the fore, or a better view of where is the employee in the organization and what is his or her journey with the organization, there is a strong sense of consolidation as well, which is coming through. So, all in all, just wrapping up, key messages that came out from the study were: Asia is a growth market. The sentiment around growth are high. But as organizations scale and pursue that growth, there are challenges around having the right capability, the right skill sets, and driving change around it. Productivity pressures are on the horizon, and organizations will soon be riddled by it. To address this, successful HR organizations are taking an outside in view to transformation, which is anchored around, which is truly anchored around employee experience, empowerment, driving agile ways of working, and the underpinning themes of where the next year's agenda for organizations is looking like. I think it's also a departure from rethinking, re-strategizing. All of these themes which you're seeing on your screen right now are themes which are related to execution. So execution is going to be a big theme as we enter 2024 and 2025. I'll hand it back to you, Esther, to bring in our guests and continue the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Vikram, and I know how difficult it is for you to just cover this in 10, 12 minutes. And I'll request the team to please put the URL of the report on the comment section, so you can have a look at it later and download it later, because there's so much more to it that what we could cover in the first 10 minutes. So thank you, Vikrant, for doing that. And now I'm gonna have the privilege to welcome our guest as well, who is joining us, Nerissa Carbonell Verba, EVP, Chief People Officer at Security Bank Corporation. Very warm welcome, Nerissa.
Thank you, Esther, and Esther, and to the rest of those who are in this webinar. Good afternoon.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, Nerissa. And just as a quick background, of course, the Security Bank Corporation is a leading universal bank in Philippines, and Nerissa leads the People and Culture Department. She brings a lot of experience in corporate retail, shared services, HR, and she's really worked across different functions in HR and also M&A integration. She leads the organizational change initiatives and culture transformation at all levels, and works on creating that business impact through the people function and the business. So it's a pleasure to have you with us, Nerissa, once again. Thank you so much. I'm going to invite Vikrant to quickly just help us connect, and you left us with this comment about the importance of execution. And I wanted, and in your presentation, you have already covered the risks. You talked about what keeps the business leaders awake at night. You mentioned capability, both talent and leadership. You mentioned new ways of working in a digital context, and you also mentioned rising costs. And you gave us a little bit snippet of how to fix it. You talked about scaling or experimentation to scale. You talked about personalization. You talked about the importance of technology. So before we give it over to Nerissa with a really deep case study on the work that she has led at Security Bank with her team, we'd love to understand from you. Tell us more about that shift from ambition to execution, or how do we need both? We love your context opening and a little bit of background information about the work that Nerissa and her team are doing, and then I'll invite her to take us through that in detail.
Okay. So interestingly, Esther, what we found was, if I go back to that circle of HR transformation that I presented, that was a circle where we looked at close to about 35 odd parameters around both the successful HR initiatives as well as employee experience related initiatives. And we've been seeing it anecdotally across several of the customers that I've worked for and work for right now. What came out was that when it comes to thinking through aspects of business alignment, HR is doing fairly well, right? Organizations are very confident that yes, when it comes to setting KPIs, when it comes to partnering with the business, we're doing a fairly good job of it. So the intent is there. But where the story starts cracking, and I'm just going to talk about the data and then expand it to how it plays out in an organization, is that when it comes to questions around, are you able to tailor programs for the different workforce segments that you have? Are you able to change programs and policies effectively for the organization as business changes? And are you able to measure ROI of the investments which you're putting into driving change, into driving capability development? Those are areas where we saw a lag. So while the intent is there, data is suggesting that when it comes to execution related elements, there is a lag. And if I peel the onion further, that lag is not really coming just from the way HR organizations are riddled for scale. That lag is also coming partially because of the fact that employee experience thinking is not there. So if we think of employee experience anchors where employees feel that their organizations are doing a great job, those are more support related. But when it comes to aspects like managers providing them clarity on goals, or them feeling the fact that managers are taking the right decision based on their capability, their aspirations, or the efforts which are being put in to communicate more openly and provide access to leadership, are also missing. So for me, it's a classic dichotomy of more intent, less of execution. And while there isn't a silver bullet to it, from successful organizations who've been ahead of the curve. And we have Nerissa on the call on this interview today, and she'll talk more about it. One of the analogies that I've found very interesting is the analogy of bricks and mortar. So if you think of bricks as your intent, you actually need the mortar of ways of working to really bring everything together. And what is the way of working? The way of working is the coming together of your HR operating model, which defines what is the scope of HR, how will HR be organized, what are the services HR will provide, and how will those services be provided and measured. And the moment you start answering these questions, technology automatically comes into play. So, in a way, all your initiatives can be bricks, but the coming together of a successful HR operating model complemented with the right choice of technology becomes critical to bringing it all together and holding it strongly. So, that's the analogy of intent and execution. A parallel can be bricks and mortar, where mortar becomes the success driver more than anything else.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vikrant. And I will invite you, Nerissa, to take us through the Security Bank story, especially how you and your team were able to really, really connect that ambition that you had with the initiative of You Matter. And we'd love you to take us a lot more through the origins of that initiative. And the most important element that Vikrant was mentioned on execution and alignment to business. So take us through the storyline of this initiative and how it was conceptualized and how it sustained to execute to where it is today.
All right. So I hope you can hear me well. So perhaps just to give you a better context, let me first give you a background of how HR was in Security Bank prior to my joining. So I joined the bank in April of 2020. This was during the pandemic. And HR was known to be more of a service delivery. So we're very good at delivering payroll benefits administration. So when I took on the role in 2020 of April, the first thing that I had to do was really look at how we were structured. I was also very fortunate that I was also part of the group that had been part of the strategy development for the entire bank for a 5-year strategy. So I had an inside view of where we wanted to take the bank. And because seeing where we wanted to go, I had to really assess the readiness of the organization as to whether it's something that we can deliver over time. And obviously, I had to sort of look at the talent, the structure, and recommended a new operating model for HR, one that is closer to the business through developing new roles such as HR business partners, also creating centers of excellence, particularly around total rewards and talent management, and also enable a better HR service delivery through our HR service delivery group. So with that, I had to bring in talent from the external market. I also had to repurpose some of the existing talent within the group because I also wanted to encourage internal mobility, considering that there were new roles that we were also creating. Then post that, when we had rolled this out in 2021 with the new operating model for HR, we also started to look at what sort of technology should we start using for us to be able to provide the necessary services for our employees. So in essence, in 2021, in 2020, we revamped the HR operating model. And in 2021, we already started investing in hiring and bringing in HR talent and also technology. So for 2021, we also saw the need for us to develop our leaders and continue the development of the entire bank. And so we had invested heavily in a platform for learning and development so that we allow employees to continue learning in a digital format, as opposed to in the past, they were actually just doing classroom training. We also wanted to understand, what employees are thinking about, because during this time we were still operating virtually. And so we didn't know exactly, if employees were generally happy, if they had concerns. So we had again invested in the platform to allow for us to listen to their concerns and air out their sentiments so that we are able to act on them. And in 2022, it's really about future proofing the organization because we've had the platforms, but we also wanted to develop a good pipeline for leaders. So we've again invested in a platform to allow for us to look at some of the important competencies that we wanted to build both on the leadership side as well as the functional side. And because of all of these things that we were developing, including wellness activities, counseling for our employees virtually through a partnership with a third party, we felt the need for us to be able to clearly articulate what we are doing for the entire organization, considering also our ability to meet the ambition of the bank. So the employee value proposition that we put together is centered around you matter. It's a very simple word, but essentially it's very powerful, at least on the part of the employees, because it really speaks about what the organization is doing for them. So you matter has 6 pillars. So one of which is really around providing flexibility. So while most of our peers in the banking industry have already gone ahead asking their employees, for example, to come to the office 100%, we are actually hybrid. So it's role based. So employees don't really have to come to work 100% the entire week. So it's really dependent on their role. Apart from that, even the way we dress, it's up to you. It's flexible. So that kind of flexibility is being afforded to our employees. And of course, enabling them, providing them with digital learning, mentoring and coaching for leaders, for example. We care for them because we provide health and wellness activities and initiatives. So all these things we do for our employees. So if you look at the 3-year journey of HR in Security Bank, it's really making sure that we adhere to what the business wants to achieve, and then couple that with initiatives that will support the employee side. Now, for 2023, knowing that these are the initiatives that we've already uh, shared to the organization, we felt we could do more. And so we've invested in Darwinbox really to improve the employee experience. Um, we have an on-prem system at this point, an on-prem system that's been in use for 10 years. And we felt that it's about time really to move and transition to a more cloud-based system. And we've been very happy because it comes in 3 phases. So we've implemented already the core phase, and it's been wonderful. We've been getting a lot of good feedback also from our employees because at the end of the day, um, we really want the employees to really speak about the organization in such a positive way. Second is really want for them to stay in the organization, progress here, and be able to develop themselves internally. So all the investments that we're making really is in line with our vision of really making sure that we take care of our employees. At the same time, looking after the business goals as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Nerissa, for taking us through the storyline since you joined with that mandate to support the organization to fulfill that ambition as a bank, and how you were able to connect those dots through the operating model, through the future-proofing focus, and through really redefining the EBP as a, in a way, as a glue that brings it all together from an employee perspective. So there is a question that's come from Lee Alice, and I'm going to be taking questions as we go along. And the question, I think, and a lot of points in your conversation, in your storytelling, you talked about some implementations of technology at different points, looking at different needs. And the question is, what strategies do you have for better implementation of tech, especially to improve employee experience? So maybe, Nerissa, if you can give it a
Sure.
first cut, and then Vikran will love to get your input on
Yes.
that as well.
Perhaps
Go
I
ahead.
could use the example that we had recently with Darwinbox when we had
Yes,
implemented
please.
the second phase, which is really the core implementation. So even before the implementation of the system, communication happened 6 months prior to that. We were really preparing the organization that we were going to transition to a system. And the promise was we wanted a data or system that provides one source of truth, one that is simple, one that is progressive, and one that can be accessed through mobile. So that alone creates a lot of excitement on the part of the employee. So always make sure that you also address the need and answer the question, what's in it for me from an employee standpoint, right? Second is we had to gather all the pain points. You know, why is it so difficult for HR to come up with reports? Why does it take a day or two before we could give you attrition rates? Primarily because our current system is on-prem. We have to do it in Excel, manually. But with the new system, just clicking at the button, your manager can actually view attrition data. You don't need your HR business partners to do that for you. So in effect, the decision making now becomes faster. And I think one of the things that I proudly would say we did very well was really the customer experience labs. So imagine a big mobile phone installed in one of your floors, and you have the ability to show your employees. Just key in your employee number, and you get all your employee data right there. So that alone, providing them with the actual experience, help gain the excitement and buy-in from the employees. The other thing was also part of the experience lab was really gaining input and insights from the users. So as we ask them, these are the features, tell us what works for you, what do you think can we improve on, and based on their input, we then discuss with our partners for Darwinbox, how else can we make this better? So there's a lot of collaboration. So it's not. I'd say that the relationship we have with Darwinbox is one that is symbiotic. It's really it's like a brother and sister relationship where okay, we need to take care of each other, making sure that what our employees ask for, you also are able to deliver. So it's a partnership, really. It's a partnership. So I think that's one of the key things. So to gain if you want the implementation to be seamless, you bring your stakeholders ahead of the game, get feedback, create some excitement. We had a week-long people town hall where Darwin Box was actually featured. We gave it a name. We gave it a name called Hero. So Hero stands for HCM Employee Resources Online. And then we even created a mascot so people can see who Hero is, and Hero can actually help us with our day-to-day requirements. So it's been good. Apart from that, now that we've implemented the core phase, we did a base survey and a post survey after 90 days for us to be able to check the adoption rate of our users. And I'm pleased to tell you that we are already at 99% adoption level. As of this morning, I had a call with the team and it briefed me that post 90 days, employees are really using it for their leave applications, so on and so forth. So it's been good.
Awesome, Nerissa, and I'm gonna invite Bikran, but before I do that, I think you make it sound so easy, and only both of you know how many of those activities interconnected with each other, and finally that that execution focus, which is really, really what I hear you when you take us through all of these different initiatives. Thank you, Nerissa, for that. Vikrant, your opinion on how do we get these technology implementations to really help us improve employee experience?
Yeah, thanks for that. And Nerissa, thank you for the kind words. It's heartening to hear such kind words, right? So I can't stop gleaming with joy. Going back to your question, Esther, I'll again go back to that statement of intent and execution. So if I look back at everything that Nerissa spoke about, I've been closely involved with Security Bank throughout the implementation journey, and now as we are getting into realization and expansion, even thereon. Uh, I'll again go back to intent and execution, both in the way this was thought through. So if we backtrack to when Nerissa was talking about how she shaped the HR agenda, yes, there was intent to have new roles, but the took took execution was the focus, and quickly new roles came to being. The HR organization started taking shape, and you were ready to move to the next level to scale it, right? So there was intent, execution, willingness to scale. And if one looks at the technology journey that Nerissa spoke of, and Esther, in the past, I've done several of these conversations with the HR community on People Matters platform, where I talk about success in HCM technology deployments. I don't think there is a single tick mark which Nerissa and her wonderful team and the partnership that she's had from the finance organization, from the enterprise transformation organization, from the strategy organization, there isn't a box that they haven't ticked. We started off that journey with a very clear definition of what are we going for, what are we aiming for, right? So the anchors, the ambition was set. If since Nerissa has spoken so much about her journey, the ambition was set around, we'll consolidate everything onto one platform, we'll make it simple, things will be available on mobile, and last but not the least, linked with the theme of security bank, which is better banking, and you matter, we wanted to bring in progressive practices. So with that ambition, we started the journey, and the execution was spotless. Nerissa spoke about it. The other part which I'll bring about as I reflect on this journey is again on the total circle of HR transformation. An HR agility view only would have meant that we would have gone faster on the implementation and then eventually taken the final product, the final platform to the employees. But what Nerissa was talking about, which is the experience labs which happened at each and every stage, wherever the platform was, as part of change, as part of excitement, employees, managers, leaders were brought in to see the prototype, that this is the future we will offer soon. It took away the anxiety and converted that anxiety into excitement. So while HR was thinking through all of the processes, what needs to happen, employees were always informed, employee experience was consistently measured, and that's what led to the adoption rates that Nerissa has been talking about. Last but not the least, from a governance standpoint, I spoke about ROI, right? It is an investment, right? And if even if you take aside the monetary value of the investment, just the sheer amount of time that it consumes across the business, the leadership, to undergo an implementation like this, they showcasing the value of a platform becomes important. So right from I the most eloquent way I can put this is that the security bank team knew what is the value they want. They engineered for that value. They're right now in a stage where they're realizing the value of phase one and expanding towards the subsequent phases where some of the strategic modules will come through. So all in all, it's been a journey which has been defined uh, by a very clear ambition and spotless execution.
Thank you so much.
I
Go
think
ahead.
just to add to that, we have a very good change management approach in place.
Yeah.
So we have a team that really looks after the various changes that we're trying to introduce to the organization. So you talked about the adoption rate, but there are also communication channels that we explore heavily to communicate to our employees. Apart from that, we also do training. So imagine that. We use LinkedIn Learning for our digital platform. So this team actually develops their own training course where all of us employees can actually view. So that as I open the system in Darwinbox, I have a cheat sheet through a training that the team has developed for us. It's like a walkthrough step by step. while the system is user friendly, but for those who probably are, challenged by technology, they are supported with training. We also have hypercare, so they can raise a ticket if they have questions around how to file. So all the channels we've explored to make sure that the employee experience is good. Because this is just the first phase. So imagine if we were to introduce another module, which is happening before year end. We want to ensure that the excitement is still there.
Yeah.
So there. Yeah.
Super. Thank you. Thanks, Nerissa, for that. And I'm maybe gonna invite you to comment a little bit later on in this conversation on the sustainability, as you just alluded to. Maybe you can take it up right now, because I had another question, but maybe it's flowing now. Because I've heard Vikrant saying this multiple times that go live is just day one, and you guys are already at a success. And now the challenge to both of you is going to be, how do you sustain that excitement as you keep introducing more and more, in a way, complexity, because all these different modules are going to help the organization, but how do you sustain that excitement?
Right. So I think it's doing things right, right? Making sure that we're able to address the pain points. That alone will help sustain the adoption rate. Second is we continue to get feedback from our employees, and our employees are very open to tell us whether this is too difficult, or how else can you give us, how else can you help us. So that has to be something that should be made available from when we've completed the implementation up until it's running. There may be changes in the future that we will need to implement, but I think as long as we continue the experience, then we're able to sustain usage, and adaptability of employees.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nerissa. Any comment, Vikrant, on sustaining that energy?
So, two comments. If I look at the Security Bank journey, one comment was they made change uh, palatable, right? So instead of bringing in a lot of changes in one go, um, the agile mindset has been used to its fullest. We've solved for the major pain areas in the first release. The next release will solve for scale. The final release will solve for capability as well as performance, right? So changes are coming in phases, and each phase has its own stabilization or adoption period which has been given, so that people don't feel overwhelmed. Again, Esther, I go back to agility and experience. Agility would suggest, hey, HR can do it fast, let's just release it. But that employee experience thinking on how do you make it palatable, that's why I call it the circle of HR transformation. And that's very important. So that's again, one of the tick boxes which Security Bank has done beautifully. The second aspect from a sustainability standpoint is, go live for them was actually called Go Begin. We were at an SKO, we were at our sales kickoff. The team was there, and of course, Jason Averbook uses Go Begin a lot, so he inspired us also. The Security Bank team actually thought of it as a Go Begin, and with that sense, again, intent and execution, they've carved out a separate team, which is an employee experience team, which will be mandated to look at not only how the system is getting adopted, but also connect it with the employee experience pieces. So, what that does is that it ensures that whatever platform they're using, and this is not just for Darwinbox, it cuts across all the platforms that Security Bank has. What that does is that it makes sure that your platforms are always modern, always up to date, and always getting in the voice of the user, so that you're tailoring processes, you're adapting to processes along with the needs of the employees. So I think that's very important for organizations to look at as they think of sustaining the success that they've had in the initial days.
Awesome. Thank you, Vikrant. And I'm just changing the gears as I get questions from the audience, because we have 11 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, and I want to make sure we cover as many questions from the audience, so keep them coming. And I'm going to take, Nerissa, I'm going to take Rana Bomik's question related to culture and the role that culture really plays on supporting or not really sometimes this intention or this ambition to execution. Can you comment on her question? What's the role of culture, and how do we get culture to really be the driving force and disseminates through technology and empowerment and connection of this ambition?
I think for us, what worked was we were very clear on where we wanted to go as an organization. So there was really an intense communication provided bank-wide. We want to be the most customer-centric bank in the Philippines. So how do you actually translate that ambition to reality? And the question I always ask myself, you can't even declare that you are a customer-centric organization if you're not actually taking good care of your people to begin with, right? So you need to start fixing the house first before you could declare to the world that you are a customer-centric organization. So we had to make that clear to our employees that there is a major change that we want to happen, and it has to start first with us. And so when you start communicating the importance of this is our outcome, but this is what we're doing for you, then there is a better understanding of why these changes are happening internally so that I can service our customers much better. I am happy with Security Bank because I'm given flexibility and being taken care of. I have all the necessary tools to develop me. And because of that, I provide the right service to the organization. So there has to be clarity on the objective. And when that is the that is the discussion that's taking place, the culture now shapes on its own, right? You now see people who are delivering more because they know that they're being taken care of. They know that I could spend more time spending time with my clients because everything is now automated. The process by which I can do my work is much easier because of the system that I'm using. So these things are interconnected. And when they see that happening because of the execution and the way it's communicated, the ability to deliver our better banking promise to our clients are far greater than how it was done in the past. And I'm not saying this because I work for the organization, but when a lot of our clients come to me when I talks outside, they say, Narissa, I just want to let you know that we're very happy with the services of Security Bank. And that really makes me happy because to me, that is a direct translation of what we're doing for our employees through all the digitalization that we're doing and the transformation that we're working on to our customers, which is ultimately the outcome that we want to achieve. So hope that helps.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nerissa. So there's another question from Sarah Lim, specifically, and it's a big question. How should leaders approach the coming year to ensure the workforce is engaged and motivated and contributes to company success? I am tempted to turn this webcast into a 3-day residential program so then we can answer these questions. I don't know, but if you can give us a little bit of how do we approach this engagement and motivation and connecting it with the business aspiration and the business success? How do
That's
we
a
approach
very
it?
interesting question. We normally do our engagement surveys at least once a year. But if we look at our managers, how do we train them up to ensure that they have day-to-day conversations with their people to understand how happy are they, how engaged are they? You don't even have to wait for a survey to be done year end to find out whether the employees working for me are engaged. So I think it's more around how do we scale up our managers so that they become more engaging to their employees. I hate to hear a manager coming to me and say, Risa, someone's resigning from my team, and he looks surprised. For me, that's a big question mark. So that means you're not doing your day-to-day conversations. You're not even thinking of if the person's happy or motivated. So I think it boils down to the manager. At the company level, we can all do all these things, but imagine the relationship that managers build with their team is very, very important. That's why in the study that you had shown, manager is plays a very, very, big role in the engagement of the team. So that's how I would position it. It's a big question, hard to answer, but it boils down to how we are skilling up our mid-level managers to become more engaging.
Thank you. Thanks, Nerissa, for that. Bikran, any comment on Sarah Lim's question?
I'll not get into what Nerissa spoke of, but we'll build
Yeah,
on
sure.
top of it.
Sure.
So, see, each and every organization today is undergoing some form of change, and many a times, what impacts your last mile employee or the workforce at large is them feeling that they're distant from the reason why and how those decisions are being made. And those decisions, while they are being made for the workforce, uh, they don't feel connected to them. So the answer lies for me in two parts, right? One is effective communication on why are we undergoing the change, what will this change do for you, and how will you be supported during this change. I think that just creates such an important belief within the workforce that, hey, our leaders are really communicating top down, and it's got to be beyond emails, right? It's got to be a conversation. It's almost like that paradigm of leaders in the square talking to people about what their plans are, right? And it's even more important right now for two reasons. One, because of the diversity which we have from a generational standpoint in our workforce. And second, if one looks at uh, just the volatility which we've seen in the external environment, that makes it even more important for leaders to communicate. So that would be one. The second one would be to overinvest in helping people adopt to the changes which are coming, because standard views of you know providing them with decks and this is how we are changing, this is the new way of working, doesn't help. Over investing today on helping people adopt to change, helping them drive, hand holding them through change, shows that you care about people. You're investing in people. And as you think of over investing, I think that links beautifully to what Nerissa said, that leaders can't be everywhere. How do you create a force multiplier through the managers of an organization by empowering them?
Wonderful. Thank you. And I'm conscious about time. I want to make sure we have one last advice or closing words from both of you. And maybe I will pick up the theme of from ambition to execution, or ambition and execution. And I'll invite you to maybe just leave us with one stop, one start. If as CHROs in this conversation, HR leaders in this conversation, we need to really be able to bring that value, that impact to the business. What will be one star, one stop you want to leave us with today?
For me, I guess you should really start understanding the organization that you work for. Start understanding and stop thinking of so many things you'd like to do in just 1 year. You need to be able to really look at priorities, like in terms of impact. If I do this versus doing 10 things, what would be the impact of this particular initiative to the outcome that we're trying to achieve? I think that's something that you should be looking at, because we will always be what we always want to be able to do everything, right? But at one point, you just have to scale it down, say what matters most. And that's you're driving, that's where you should drive your thought process, so you can help the business that you support.
Thank you, Nerissa. Vikrant?
So it's difficult to bring it down to start and stop, right?
I
So
know.
if I was to think about one start,
Yeah.
a lot of experimentation has happened over the last
Yep.
few years. I think the start which needs to happen is, don't reinvent the wheel. Look at your own experimentation and see what can scale and what can drive success across the organization. As agile ways of working have stepped in HR, experimentation has been on the rise, but scale up hasn't been on the rise. But now it's time for scaling that up, right? The stop, according to me, would be stop over investing. Not over investing is the wrong word. If you draw up your end to end journey, I would say that stop holding yourself back in taking whatever you are building to employees, right? You shouldn't stop that. You should proactively take it to employees, get their feedback, because they are going to be the eventual consumers. So getting their feedback is important, and the more we are able to get it, the better our programs are, and we'll understand the organization better.
Great. Thank you so much, Vikrant, Nerissa. We've just at the hour now, and I'm going to really, really have to complete the conversation. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to learn from both of you today.
Thanks, Esther.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nerissa.
Thank you so much, both of you. And we had Nerissa Verba, Chief People Officer at Security Bank, and Vikrant Khanna, Global Head, Value Management Advisory and Solutions at Darwinbox. Once again, a lot of gratitude for your time and for taking us through your experience and all the answers that you've provided us today. Thank you very much. Great. And thank you so much, all of you, for your comments, your suggestions, of course, your questions. It was really, really a fantastic hour, and I could have been here with all of you for a bit longer. But I am conscious that everyone has a very, very tight schedule. So thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to request once again the team to paste the URL of the HR Evolution Perspective report. You're going to have an opportunity to see all the data, but also most importantly, as Vikrant was saying, a roadmap of how can you implement some of those solutions in your organization. So requesting the team to put it in the chat section. Very, very grateful to Darwinbox team to partner with us for this initiative and really, really pushing the needle on supporting the community to take that driving seat on transformation. Darwinbox is a leading provider in cloud-based HR management software. And today they serve over 800 organizations, more than 2.2 million employees across 116 countries, including not only large conglomerates, but also fast-growing organizations. So Darwinbox has actually been recognized, and it was there in Vikrant's presentation as well, as #1 customer choice HCM by Gartner globally. So thank you once again, Darwinbox and the Darwinbox team, for bringing us together. And with that, it's going to be a wrap for today's session. Stay tuned. Thank you once again for joining us, and have a wonderful day ahead.